do.
Nice retro reference to Gateshead there for you.
Did I say Gateshead?
You did, yeah.
Amazing. I meant Newcastle.
The last two results, it was Widnes 32, Swinton 16, and York 70, Rochdale 12.
Into the NRL where it was round 1, Al?
Yep. So it was the Eels 8.
Oh shit!
Bulldogs.
No, let's do the Challenge Cup draw. We don't know when these games are going to get played.
No, but go on.
Visually
let's
scheduled for the weekend of the 4th and 5th of April. Although obviously that's subject to change, with no Rugby League happening until the 3rd of April. The full draw is as follows, and I think they've done this in backwards order, so I'm going to start at the bottom. York City Knights versus Castle. Oh, they've done it in alphabetical order. Oh, I'll do it from the top. No, I'll do it from the bottom still. York City Knights versus Castleford Tigers. So, hypothetically, if they ever get a test done to make sure that stadium's safe, it could be the first one at the new York Stadium. Wigan, not to be confused with the New York Stadium in Rotherham.
Yes. on New York Stadium in New York, yeah. Cool.
Wigan Warriors versus Warrington Wolves. What
Obviously.
the hell? Like, every year, fans are like moaning, we play Warrington too many times. But it's no one...
Because you play them in the Cup.
It's just, we play them in the Cup, we get drawn against them in the Cup, and Magic last couple of years has been done on where you finish in the league, and we're bloody getting them in that too! This is craziness! Someone should have said, just redraw that one. It's too many times. But anyway, Wigan are at home in that one, theoretically. Widnes versus Catalans Dragons. Wakefield Trinity versus the Featherstone Rovers. So that's a good local derby. Sheffield Eagles hosting Hull FC. Salford Red Devils host St Helens, so that's the grand final from last year remade. Newcastle Thunder host the Toronto Wolfpack. That's arguably, maybe Sheffield aside, the draw that Newcastle might have wanted.
Yes.
And Leeds Rhinos play the Hull Kingston Rhinos in the final tie of round 6. Like we say, potentially going to be played the first games back after the Corona break, but maybe not. We'll talk more about that later on. But first of all, we will get those. Any reaction actually to that? Any ties that stand out for you particularly?
I do like the sound of the Newcastle Toronto one. I think that could be.
Will be there for that one, won't they?
Intriguing. Yeah. We will see. Right.
Okay, NRL round 1 then.
Yeah, NRL round 1 started this week. So it was Eels 8, Bulldogs 2 on Thursday.
Cav got in touch to say, great to have the NRL back. This was a great match to kick it off. So fast and furious, it felt at times like I was watching in fast forward. Both teams looked incredible, but the Eels particularly looked like they could push for a place in the big match versus the Super League champions.
It was the Raiders 24, Titans 6. So the British Raiders. Williams on his debut, 5 tackle busts and 2 clean breaks. Whitehead with a try and 101 metres. Hodgson with 42 tackles, and Watkins got to play for the Titans and made 137 metres.
And Cav got in touch again and said, Canberra too good. Even with Bateman missing, they were streets ahead. We could be seeing a return to the grand final. Hodgson looked awesome as always. Whitehead looked solid, and Williams looks to fit right in. As I thought he would. For the Titans, it was good to see Watkins looking good after his dire start to his NRL career. Lots of hard work for Holbrook to do with this team. Yeah, massive work for Justin Holbrook. You're right there, Cav. They're some way off. Even when the Raiders kind of did the very Raiders-y thing of taking the foot off the gas, the Titans just couldn't keep things together. They couldn't join play up well enough. They just couldn't. Once they got possession in the opposition half, they kind of lost their way. The Titans, so that's something to work on. Watkins did put a good shift in though, I thought, so well done to him. George Williams on his debut was very, very good. His kicking game showed some really good touches and some improvement, really. He had a couple of breaks that you mentioned, and both of those led to potential try scoring opportunities. On one of them, he was well tackled just short of the line, and on the sort of impact with the ground, the ball kind of bounced loose. And on the other one, there was a a split second where if he could have got the ball away in that split second, he might have got it to his supporting runner outside him, but the defence were kind of starting to fill that gap, so there could have been an interception or a knockdown on. So he chose to take it himself, and there's just those little aspects of his decision making will no doubt need sharpening up, but it was very pleasing start for him, and the other two did what we've seen them do for the last 3 or 4 years in the NRL, so fair play to those boys.
Yep. Cowboys opened their new stadium but couldn't win. It was Cowboys 21, Broncos 28. Herbie Farmworth playing from the bench in this one. It's good to see.
I didn't see any of the game, but good on Herbie getting a go.
Yep, so Newcastle Knights 20, the Warriors zip. Rabbitohs 22, Sharks 18, Burgess with 131 metres.
Although Alan Walker got in touch to say, still got too much Burgess, #dicks for fingers.
It was Panthers 20, Roosters 14. I've still got that to watch on the planner. Sea Eagles 4, Storm 18, and the Dragons 14, West Tigers 24, and James Graham played in that one.
Yeah, the Panthers-Roosters game was a very exciting game, very fast game.
Okay, I look forward to that.
Yeah, so you will enjoy watching that. Sorry that the result has been spoiled for you. There were a couple of other games to talk about. Just because we talked about the first one last week, I thought we'd round it out. The Women's Origin, the sort of weirdly contrived, but we felt that was quite clever of the coaching staff to do, even if some other people weren't quite happy with the selections necessarily and some of the aspects of it. I think it was well worked. Game 2 at Batley was Yorkshire 12, Lancashire 12. So I think Lancashire scored very late on in that one to get a draw. And then Game 3 back at Wheatwood, in that's Leeds, isn't it? That's where Leeds...
It is, yeah. Yeah, North Leeds.
Yeah. Yorkshire 0, Lancashire 23. With a couple of the Wigan players and a handful of the St Helens players really being at the fore in that performance. And I tell you what, a back row that includes Crowell and Molyneux, and then you throw Rudge into that mix. You're talking about a top draw back row that England could potentially have come the end of the season there from those three.
Yeah, but an interesting concept, and we'll see if it was just a one-off.
Yeah, me and Sarah praised the concept last week. So to explain to people who didn't listen last week or missed this part of the show last week, the concept was 30-minute halves, so that the players would tire less at this stage where they've not really got into they're in the pre-season still, so the intensity could be higher. And the other twist on it was, the second twist was 3 games in a week to try and replicate that kind of tournament environment of close turnarounds. And then the third thing was they wanted to try and get more girls having to go at kicking to see what depth they have in the kicking ranks in the representative scene. So instead of having your normal 1 conversion for 2 points, you had 2 goes at conversion, 1 point each, as long as they were by different players. So it got more people a chance to kick at goal. So yeah, what do you think about those concepts at this stage of the season?
It's an interesting one, but obviously it does mean that the Lancashire 23 isn't a disrespectful drop goal. And we all know I love a disrespectful drop goal. But yeah, no, it's interesting. It proves that the women's game is still it's still evolving. They still don't really understand what they have. It feels like in terms of but it's a really interesting concept of trialing kickers in a higher pressure environment, because I can just imagine. I don't know with the Batley game whether the draw is a result of 2 successful 1-point kicks. I've no idea, but or what that meant. But yeah, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, that's results covered. I guess we've only got one thing really left to talk about, Alan. So let's
I can't think what that is.
To our coronavirus predictions. We're going to finally talk about the news about the coronavirus and the game being suspended, guys. That's coming up after this short burst of Rich's tunes.
So there should have been 4 games in this round. Yeah, it was a shortened round anyway, but there should have been Catalan Dragons against Leeds, and after much toing and froing, eventually, with phantom coronavirus sufferers in the Leeds camp and playing behind closed doors, etc., in the end it didn't happen. And Alan Walker got in touch and said, in the end, game off after all. Despite dicking around for ages, Sinfield did the right thing. He shouldn't be sanctioned. So 4 games played, 3 games off. They should give the hubcap to Wigan now and rearrange a new season when the game restarts in April or May with no loopy fixtures. If the league does get called off, top team gets hubcap straight away. Maintain the grand final date as it is. Count back from when game restarts, i.e. if there's a couple of weeks, do the playoffs with the current top 5. The rest play for a play if they want. If there's time for a full set of rounds, draw a new set of fixtures, half at home, half away, play it from scratch, then playoffs. There's unlikely going to be time for more. Challenge Cup might have to go.
Right, that's what Alan had to say. We'll give the sort of official news stories and then kind of come up with what we had to say in a couple of bits we had in over Twitter over this. So we'll kind of take it in order because we were the slowest to act, reflecting very much our government. So we'll start that. The first people to sort of call off the games was the French Federation. So they temporarily suspended all of its competitions on, I want to say Friday, following the coronavirus outbreak. They had previously announced that games would be restricted to no more than 1,000 people, including participants. Of course, then the French government rolled it back to only 100 people, including participants, and everyone sort of associated officially with any event. So basically, there wasn't going to be a Catalans versus Leeds game after this came out, either late Thursday or early Friday, kind of anyway. And then the plane that Leeds were on probably would have got turned around because that's what was happening because they were going to Spain first. So they never would have got into France anyway. So yeah, great trolling by the RFL, but I don't think there could be any sanctions handed out to Leeds for unilaterally deciding not to get on that plane. That wouldn't have got them to the fucking game anyway.
Oh, I disagree. They should be stripped of all points.
Actually, yeah, you're right. Why was I thinking logically? I'm much more in favour of your approach. So then, on Friday too, the Australian National Rugby League sort of said that they're going to follow advice from their federal and state governments, which effectively was to ban mass gatherings from what is today, Monday, as we record, and it means that from round 2, all the games will be played within closed stadiums and spectators will not be allowed to attend Premiership games until further notice. So, of course, they can take greater advantage of how much revenue they earn through television rights.
Yes.
And the offshoots from televised coverage that the Super League don't have quite the same luxury maybe to take advantage of, so they're going to be playing behind closed doors. The special case, the difficult case, is the New Zealand Warriors. There's been some conjecture about they might have to throw in the towel for the season. Obviously there's the players based in Australia at the moment still, and they're sort of roughly committed to staying in Australia, but you've got the problem that all their families are back in New Zealand, and this is concerning times for lots of people, and that's not ideal. So the Warriors is the special case in the NRL, and it's going to be a challenge to overcome, but you kind of think they can get away with playing behind closed doors for at least a spell. Do you agree?
It's we're leading to the greater thing, aren't we now? I think the issue is, or the kind of the response to it is kind of based on where these countries are in terms of their response to the outbreak. France have many, many more cases than certainly at the time when it was called off. Many, many more cases than the UK did, and certainly more than Australia did. So it was inevitable that they'd be affected first, then us, and then I think it's inevitable that ultimately Australia will be affected in the same way, and they will have to probably postpone games as well, completely.
If they move into their winter towards their winter as well, and especially in New Zealand where it's a colder climate, slightly.
Well, yeah, but if you believe what you mean, who knows what? But apparently, we shouldn't expect it to be affected by weather like flu is. But anyway, Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one. I think everyone's working. It's an evolving situation and fast evolving, as they say. So who can say?
So it is a difficult circumstance, a different circumstance in Australia, and I guess it just means